What's up, guys? Rick from DFS On Demand here with a preview for week 4 in the NFL. And it's a pretty interesting week. If you've been on DFS Twitter at all, you'll know that DraftKings has made some changes to the main slate. So if you're playing the Millie Maker or whatever the main slate is, it's just going to be the Sunday, the early games and the late games. So on the East Coast, that's 1 and 4. On the West Coast, that's what, 10 and 1. Just those games. Remember last year they took out the Monday night game. This year they had the Sunday night game in there. That's now gone. So what we're going to go through is we're going to go through the full slate, the Thursday through Sunday, and try to talk about as many of these guys as possible. But I'll try to point out where there's going to be some discrepancies. And we'll start right here at the quarterback position. So when you look at the quarterbacks, there's a lot of big names up top here. Brady, Rodgers, Ryan, Wilson, Breeze, Wentz. I threw him in there. But really, Rodgers is not on the main slate. Russell Wilson is not on the main slate. Drew Brees is not on the main slate. So the three most expensive quarterbacks, if you're playing the Millionaire Maker, are Tom Brady, Matt Ryan, and then Carson Wentz, which is why I mentioned him. So it's going to make for some really interesting lineups. Last week, we spent down on quarterback, which is a little uncharacteristic for me. I think we're almost obligated to spend up this week, especially because of the star power that we're losing on the main slate. I think it's almost required, probably, that we're going to have Tom Brady. So Brady at $8,000. Just to quickly look at what he's done, and if you follow football at all, you know what's going on here, right? So really bad week 1, no problems after that. 33 and 39 DraftKings points, 8 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. Now, this DraftKings lobby does have a little bit of a designation here that Carolina is the 3rd best offense against opposing quarterbacks, and it's not wrong, but it might be a little misleading. So actually, what I have here is this is one of the tools that's available on DFSOnDemand.com. So I'll get my face out of there. This is just the game log. So I'm just going to pull up opposing quarterbacks against Carolina. And outside of Drew Brees, like, this isn't really a gauntlet, right? It's Brian Hoyer in week 1, Tyrod Taylor, and then Drew Brees on the road. So yes, they've been the 3rd best defense against opposing quarterbacks, but it's a little bit deceptive because they haven't really played anybody interesting. Matt Ryan, on the other hand, not on the other hand, kind of in the same boat here. So Matt Ryan against Buffalo. Buffalo is a top 3 defense against quarterbacks in terms of DraftKings scoring. You know, Trevor Siemian, Josh McCown, and Cam Newton are the quarterbacks that they've faced this year. So, you know, when you're looking at the lobby, especially this early in the season, you can basically disregard a lot of these rankings. It's just very little an indication of how good a defense is, and much more an indication of just what draw they've had on the first 3 games of the season. So keep that in mind as you're going through here. Okay, I'll be all over Tom Brady as I was last week and the week before. You know, Brady is I just would prefer to spend up and take a stud at quarterback. If you're playing some other slates here, I'm willing to invest on Russell Wilson at 7,300. I'm hoping we might have missed the ceiling for Russell Wilson, but I'm hoping this is a turning point for him. You know, 373 yards last week, 4 touchdowns against a Tennessee defense for 36 DraftKings points, and he goes up $1,000. On this slate, we don't have many other options but to consider Russell Wilson as maybe this is a turning point for him. Maybe he's going to catch the hot hand. Remember that stretch he had at the end of last year where Doug Baldwin was scoring a touchdown every single week. So, you know, I'm hoping that's the kind of stretch that we can get into. And if we go back to the game logs and look at what the Colts have allowed, they've played no one. So first of all, they've played no one. Jared Goff, Carson Palmer, and Deshaun Kaiser, and have allowed at least 19 DraftKings points to every single one of those guys. That's not a good look for Indy. So I imagine that Russell Wilson will likely be able to keep the the hot hand going. He always has that ability to run 7-8 times a game, which can always pop something. So it's going to be difficult to not invest in him. As we go down the list here, again, we're so early in the season, it's really hard to decipher what is just noise and what are actually trends. So I'm willing to invest on guys that I think might have a hot hand. I'm willing to kind of, play around, take a few risks, disregard rankings a little bit just because it's so early. But Dak Prescott, I mean, you saw it on primetime Monday night against Arizona, only threw it 18 times. They did not possess the ball very long in that game, or at least in the first half, only dropped back 18 times. Very likely he throws more than 18 times in this one. Again, another guy who has the ability to run the ball. And he's been pretty efficient, right? In 17, 17, and 22 DraftKings points against an LA defense that, let's take a peek here, again, has faced pretty much nothing, right? So Scott Tolzien, Kirk Cousins, and then giving up 30 DraftKings points to Brian Hoyer last week. Again, LA, that is not a great look there. So Prescott, I think, is interesting. Outside of that, I'm not really interested in too many other guys here. I would really love to invest in Derek Carr at $5,800, but not coming off last week, not against Denver. He was really bad against Denver last year, and I know that it's different personnel, but really bad against Denver last year. Andy Dalton against Cleveland, I guess if you were desperate, but the play down here is probably Jared Goff. 2 out of the 3 weeks he's thrown at least 290 yards. This is the best we've ever seen of Jared Goff, which isn't necessarily saying much, but it's true. And, he's got 19 and 23 DraftKings points in those 2 games, and he's getting a Dallas defense. And I didn't look this up. Let's see what Dallas has allowed so far. I don't have last night's game in there with Carson Palmer yet. But I've got Eli Manning laying an egg in week 1. Trevor Siemian throws 4 touchdowns against them in week 2. And then let's see if I can find what Carson Palmer did yesterday. I guess I could do this. I'll be updating those Monday night game stats here shortly. There you go. Throws for 325. Of course, they were, basically trailing the whole time, but you would expect that LA is going to do the same thing. So if you're down in this range and you don't want to spend up for a quarterback, I can't believe I'm saying this, you could do much worse than Jared Goff. Okay, running backs. Okay, running back. We don't need to talk about Le'Veon Bell again. You know exactly what you're getting here, right? A lot of usage, a lot of targets, very likely to find the end zone, very likely to score you 20 points. I don't think we have to talk about him every single week. Kareem Hunt, I hate to say this, it's just going to be so difficult for me to invest in a guy like this. I've loved it. It's been a great run. It's been exciting. He's dominating the first 3 weeks of the football season. Unfortunately, it's probably likely that he comes back down to earth, right? Like, we don't expect him to score 25 DraftKings points every week, I assume. The glaring thing for me about Kareem Hunt is right here. It's these long plays. Every game he's snapping off something for 50 yards. That ends up being a third or half of his yardage total. So you're saying, look at this game against New England here, right? So a 58-yard rush and a 78-yard catch. So that's 136 of his 148 yards on what? 2 plays? Philadelphia, 53-yard rush, over half of his 81 yards on 1 play. A 69-yard run against LA, over a third of his yards. What I'm saying here is it's long plays like this are unsustainable. There's going to be a point where he's going to regress to the mean. He's going to not average 10 yards a carry or 11 yards a catch. This is an unsustainable pace that he's on. and unfortunately the price keeps going up and up and up. So I think if you're buying him with the risk that at some point he lays an egg. Like if he doesn't snap off any one of these plays, he's kind of in big trouble. We're not really talking about him. So I think there's plenty of risk here, certainly plenty of reward, but it's going to be difficult for me to continue investing in Kareem Hunt. This is like buying a stock really, really high. It's going to be tough to do. LaShawn McCoy's probably my favorite for this week. So, actually, before we talk about what he's done, let me show you what running backs have done to Atlanta this year. So here you go. So, first of all, 2 running backs in 3 weeks have scored at least 24 DraftKings points. Some of these are like timeshares. So first of all, Jordan Howard kind of had a crappy week 1, puts up 15 points. You know Tarek Cohen shredded Atlanta. Then some of these like Amir Abdullah, Theo Riddick, like that's like a timeshare. Like you wouldn't expect one of these guys to go nuts. Abdullah scores double-digit points. Ty Montgomery in week 2 scores 29 DraftKings points. Like this is a position that Atlanta is clearly having trouble with, and they're having trouble especially with these 2 guys, Montgomery and Cohen, who are capable pass catchers, guys that catch the ball out of the backfield. I think that certainly applies to LaShawn McCoy, who has had 7 receptions, 6 receptions, and 5 receptions in the first 3 weeks of the season, catching all but 2 of those targets. And, still hasn't found the end zone yet, right? So he scored double-digit points in every single week, 23 in week 1, and he still hasn't found the end zone. So there's upside here. So this is the type of stock that I'm looking to buy, a guy where there's actually room to improve over what we've seen so far. Great matchup. I expect he's going to be pretty highly owned, but this is the type of player that I would prefer to have over Kareem Hunt. All right. Todd Gurley, okay, I mean, listen, I'll be the first to eat crow when I'm wrong. I've been pretty wrong with him this year, okay? Again, I don't know how sustainable 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 touchdowns in 3 weeks is. I'll tell you it's not sustainable. But he's looked much better than I suspected. He's playing a larger role in the Rams offense. Again, difficult for me to buy high on a stock like this. Just because it's so unlikely that this pace keeps up. I mean, maybe he's going to have a much better season than I certainly suspected, but the touchdown pace is too much. Christian McCaffrey. Okay, talked about him last week. Said that, everything's kind of looking up, right? Like, he missed on an easy touchdown last week, or Cam Newton missed him in week 2. Goes out, gets 11 targets last week, hauls in 9 of them. This is good Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is going to thrive when the Panthers are behind early and often, and they have to throw the ball a ton because he's constantly open. He wreaks havoc on matchups. What do you think is going to happen when Carolina travels to New England this week? They're going to be down early and often. Christian McCaffrey, I don't think it's unreasonable to think he gets another 11 targets. He could have 10 receptions in this game. If he has 10 receptions in this game, let's call it 10 receptions for 50 yards. There's 15 DraftKings points. Whatever he does on the ground is a bonus. Again, still hasn't found the end zone yet. That's going to change. Buying Christian McCaffrey. I'll try not to eat up too much of the time here. Dalvin Cook, price is wrong. $6,500. 27 DraftKings points last week, 19 in week 1. Let's see what opposing running backs are doing against Detroit. So, Devontae Freeman, solid week 3. Actually, that's right, Tevin Coleman, he snapped off a long one. David Johnson, week 1, but he left that game early, right? That was only 11 rushes. Week 2, well, the Giants, you can throw them out the window. They've got absolutely nothing to offer. But that price, wrong on Dalvin Cook. Been pretty impressed with the way that he's running the ball. He is the lead back. Same thing with Jordan Howard. This price is wrong. Howard could very easily be a top 5 running back this week, and he's priced like a top 25 running back. Again, the lead back getting 20-plus carries a week. Yeah, he found the end zone twice last week, and that's going to help. But certainly a capable pass catcher as well out of the backfield. So no problem there. Tariq Cohen probably in play, especially because he is the guy who can catch passes for Chicago, and Green Bay likely to be up in this one. And then if you're looking for something really deep here, I guess it's Wendell Smallwood. So we'll see how this shakes out with Darren Sproles tearing his ACL, breaking his arm. I think Wendell Smallwood is probably the biggest beneficiary here. You could wait and see him miss out on a week, or you can get some exposure to Wendell Smallwood. I think that's probably a safe bet that he's going to be the guy. All right, wide receivers. Antonio Brown just stupid good, legit 30-point threat every single week. Oh, here's something we haven't done yet. Sorry, I haven't even shown you the cheat sheet yet for this week. So, week 4 cheat sheet. By the way, this is all available on dfsondemand.com. Not sure if I said that. Let's sort by targets here. DeAndre Hopkins still leads the league in targets with 37 of them. Antonio Brown right behind him. So clearly they have different quarterbacks. They're in different offenses. They have different skill sets. But essentially $3,000 cheaper for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins who's still getting a ton of looks. Clearly the production's not nearly as there. Less receptions, less yards, same number of TDs, but it's $3,000 different. Larry Fitz, you saw that game Monday night, still has it, still a big-time target for Carson Palmer. I think this one might be the most interesting. Emmanuel Sanders, who, again, not sure how long this can keep up, but really outpacing Demaryius Thomas in the red zone. He's been the better wide receiver. That's basically all I can say. Oakland, just got absolutely smacked in the mouth by Washington. They're gonna have a tough test with Denver in Denver this week, so that's gonna be a big problem. Flip back to the lobby here. Stephon Diggs, as a GPP player, this is the type of guy I love, right? Okay, if he goes for 5 against Pittsburgh, we missed. If he goes for 27 or 40, we won, right? Like, that's the upside that you get with Stephon Diggs. And what I like about this is he's now done it with 2 different quarterbacks. So week 1, Sam Bradford, large part of the offense, 27 DraftKings points, had 8 targets, hauled in 7 of them. It was last week with Case Keenum under center that he goes for 11 targets, 8 receptions, 40 DraftKings points. So that's a really good sign. So no matter which quarterback suits up for Minnesota moving forward, it seems like Stephon Diggs is going to be one of their best friends. So I'm thrilled to continue to roster him. And that price is going to continue to move up, I suspect. All right. Pretty good range right here. Both Miami wide receivers, Golden Tate. Golden Tate robbed of that touchdown. Actually cost me quite a bit of money. I had a Stafford Tate stack a lot everywhere. So he actually probably should have had a much better week than he actually did. As we get down into some of these cheaper options, right, where we're looking for some flyers again. Talked about both Jacksonville wide receivers last week. I still think they're in play. Who was it that scored three touchdowns? The tight end. God, I can't think of his name right now. But that's not going to happen. Right? Like, I think both of those wide receivers are still very much in play. If you're down here in this range, let's see who else we might be interested in. Jerron Brown, you saw him have a good Monday night. That might be it. I mean, the rest of these guys, not that, there's not a lot of great options down here, right? These are all pretty deep flyers. Okay. So let's wrap it up with the tight ends. And it's almost same story every single week, right? I mean, it's Zach Ertz who is dominating targets from Carson Wentz. Let's look at what... And I haven't looked this up yet. Let's look at what Chargers, tight ends against the Chargers have done. Basically nothing, but outside of Travis Kelce, they haven't really played anybody. So Travis Kelce goes 1 target, 1 reception, 1 yard. Really, really, really bad. But they really haven't played anyone else. That's kind of a little tricky situation there. So not a big concern with Ertz. He's just going to see so many targets. You're going to have to roster the guy. The tight end position is probably one of the most straightforward positions there are. I guess Cameron Brate, because he's getting those looks down in the red zone, but he's going to be very much touchdown dependent for you. I mean, geez, man, some of these are really bad. Evan Ingram, who's averaging at least double digits at $3,000, that would be okay. If you really liked a lineup and you plugged him in, I think that'd be fine. But you're gonna just have to roster Gronk, Ertz. If you want to buy low and be a glutton for punishment, Kelce, Witten, Brate, but he has to score a touchdown. And then I guess if you're building another lineup and you only want to spend $3,000, I guess Ingram's in play too. Because at $3,000, I mean, if he gives you 11 DraftKings points, you're probably pretty happy about that. I don't know what his ceiling is, but you could probably do much worse. Okay, that's it. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions or comments, tweet me. It's at DFS On Demand, or leave a comment below. Good luck this week.